The host needs to retake the college entrance examination to achieve the necessary merit-based admission. I have sold all my books, do you want me to repeat them? How can I send you a cheat system without repeating it? Although it is an optional option, choosing means changing. Starting from the choice, Chen Zhou gradually changed himself. Book Friend Group 943133581, keywords of the novel. Shuaba starts from change without pop-ups, Shuaba starts from change with full download of TXT, Shuaba starts from change with the latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Check your score. Did you get an electric shock? You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 1. Check your score. Did you get an electric shock? Early summer, the 23rd of June. The annual college entrance examination in China has finally reached the most tense and exciting stage of grading. How you did on the exam and which university you can attend will become the main theme during this period. Watching the score-checking teams 1, 2, and 3 entering and exiting from the school gate, Chen Zhou scanned one by one, searching for his own targets. He was waiting for his desk mate. No matter how good or bad the exam was, they made plans to come to school together to check their scores and hang out in front of their younger classmates, causing them to hate each other. Chen Zhou took a closer look and finally, the tall and thin person who was grinding and riding an electric scooter appeared at the school gate. Huang Jia swept around and also saw Chen Zhou. He rode his electric scooter and stopped in front of Chen Zhou, saying, "Have you checked separately?" "No, it's not waiting for you." Chen Zhou said rudely as he sat in the back seat of the electric scooter, raised his arm, and glanced at his watch. Surprisingly, this kid was not late. After a pause, Chen Zhou continued, "But it's the same whether we check the scores or not. After all, the scores in the college entrance examination are predetermined. Besides, it's not easy for us to get into a single university. That's different. Who knows if you're going to explode again, kid? Don't you expect yourself to explode?" "I don't expect it." "Okay then. Let's go to school and hang out first. Let's check the score." Huang Jiai rode a battery car with Chen Zhou heading towards the small supermarket at the entrance of Anhui West No. 1 Middle School. Neither of them had a mobile phone, so they chose to use the phone number of the small supermarket nearby to check the score. Chen Zhou picked up the landline phone of the small supermarket and dialed the score hotline on the admission ticket. The busy tone was very short, and when Chen Zhou connected, a small nervousness in his heart unconsciously followed suit. Although he said that the score was destined, the tension and expectation in his heart slowly rose as the phone was answered. Just like all candidates who always think optimistically after taking the exam, what if there's a contingency? Following the prompt on the phone, Chen Zhou entered his admission ticket number and pressed the pound key to end. Chinese. 1***. Mathematics. *** 5 points. English. *0 points. Comprehensive analysis. 2 by 8 points. Total score. 5*** points, ranking 44444 in the province. For hard of hearing, please press the asterisk key. I don't know if it's Chen Zhou's illusion. The voice on the phone couldn't be heard clearly when reporting scores, as if there was always a sound like electric current interfering. Therefore, whether it was language, mathematics, theory, or overall score, Chen Zhou did not listen to all of them. However, ranked 44444 in the province, it has not been run. After all, this number of 44,444 is too special, and the voice of ranking is clear. According to the latest news from the Anhui Provincial Examination Institute, the scores of all Anhui Province's college entrance examination candidates this year have been released, and the minimum control score lines for each batch have also been set. In 2013, the score line for Anhui Province's science first-tier college entrance examination was 544 points, with 45,631 people passing the line. The score line for science second-tier college entrance examination was 478 points. The owner of the small supermarket is also watching the news related to the Anhui Provincial College entrance examination, and this latest news has also rushed into Chen Zhou's ears. It seems that the ranking is over 1,000 higher than that of a top-tier university. Well, if I heard you right, it should be so much higher. With this thought in mind, it seems that Chen Zhou did well in the exam, and his high expectations were somewhat satisfied. Sleeping slot. Just as Chen Zhou was about to press the asterisk key to carefully listen to his college entrance examination scores again, in order to fully satisfy his expectations, the sound of his companion lying down startled him. Chen Zhou tilted his head slightly and saw the overwhelming excitement carried by his companions beside him. Facing Chen Zhou's gaze, Huang Jiayi raised his eyebrows with an uncontrollable excitement in his tone. Lie down. Chen Zhou, I have reached the cutoff line for a first-tier university. I scored 545 points, just 1 point higher than the cutoff line for a first-tier university. Sure, rhubarb. Chen Zhouting can understand Huang Jiayi's current mood and empathize with him. Previously, the mock exam was consistently high and low, hovering around the threshold of the first-tier university entrance exam. At this moment of the college entrance exam, I finally managed to pass the first-tier university entrance exam, which is truly commendable. It can be said that the sense of expectation in Huang Jiayi's heart, the restless little deer before the score check, can finally be recklessly bumped into. Huang Jiayi casually pressed the asterisk key while holding the phone, preparing to listen to the score again, and casually asked Chen Zhou, "What about you?" "I didn't hear clearly, I was planning to listen again." Before Chen Zhou could finish speaking, Huang Jiayi had already followed the voice on the phone and reported his scores: Chinese 105, Mathematics 115, English. Total score 545 points, ranking 44,445th in the province. What? When he heard Huang Jiayi report that he ranked 44,445th in the province, he felt a bit dazed. Huang Jiayi listened to the ranking of scores again and hung up the phone with satisfaction, only to find Chen Zhou beside him in a daze. He was surprised and said, "What's wrong? Are you scared by my score? How many names are you? There are 44,445 people in the whole province." Huang Jiayi roast, "Fortunately, there are not 44,444 people, all of them are SI. However, hearing Huang Jiayi's roast, Chen Zhou had 10,000 grass mud horses running through his heart. Is it more than 1,000 points higher than the ranking of a textbook? But surprisingly, the score is only 1 point higher. Until now, he finally understood the concept that teachers often say, 1 point can crush 1,000 people. By the way, this college entrance examination is a bit too harsh, isn't it? Thinking of this, Chen Zhou's whole body is not doing well. I was originally quite happy to check my score, but halfway through, I was suddenly awakened by someone. Glancing at Huang Jiayi, Chen Zhou felt a bit resentful in his heart and said, "Why should I listen to this person's score report? I didn't even hear it clearly myself. Why are you so concerned about others? What are you doing?" Suddenly, Chen Zhou realized his last hope, perhaps he had heard the ranking wrong. He locked his gaze on the asterisk key on the phone base and pressed it without hesitation. Zizizi, I didn't hear the sound of the score report, instead a piercing electric current sound came into Chen Zhou's ears. Unable to resist, he let go of his hand and the microphone fell to the ground with a loud bang. As if weathered, the microphone was shattered and the exposed phone line hung right on Chen Zhou's leg. Chen Zhou felt numb all over and couldn't control himself as he fell backwards. The sizzling sound of electricity had already rushed from his ears into his brain. Subsequently, the buzzing sounds in his mind completely isolated him from the outside world. At that moment, the sound of sizzling electricity suddenly disappeared. After a moment of silence, Chen Zhou heard a voice. Host scan successful, Shuaba system loading. A top student system. Just before Chen Zhou could react, the voice continued, we have detected that the host's brain domain development level has not met the loading requirements, and the system is urgently being disconnected. Chen Zhou. Hey. To erase any traces in the system, activate awareness clearing mode. Clearing unqualified host awareness. Chen Zhou. WTF. Completely unable to resist, consciousness gradually blurred. Welcome to provide feedback. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Neither This Nor That has been unlocked. Explore a ball. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, Neither This Nor That has been unlocked. Explore a ball. Wanshi People's Hospital. Emergency room. Chen Zhou was lying peacefully on the hospital bed, being examined repeatedly by the doctor, but nothing was found. Looking at Chen Zhou's tightly closed eyes and the fluctuating electrocardiograms, it's hard to believe that this person is really okay. Chen Zhou is completely unaware of external events, and at this moment his consciousness is situated in a bright red space. In front of him was a huge display screen, covered in red exclamation marks. These red exclamation marks are constantly flashing, and there are 5 large red characters in the center of the display screen. Emergency release in progress. This scene frightened Chen Zhou quite a bit. He remembered the voice before his consciousness fell into a blur and hurriedly shouted, "Sleeping trough, are you really here? I have provoked you, do you really want to clear my consciousness?" Taking 3 steps in 2, Chen Zhou quickly walked up to the display screen and punched and kicked, but the screen not only remained intact, but also showed no signs of breakage. Feeling his consciousness becoming increasingly disoriented, Chen Zhou quickly increased the strength in his hands and became flustered in his heart. After an unknown amount of time, Chen Zhou, who was already feeling weak and confused, slowly collapsed in front of the screen. However, his hands were still unwilling to clench into fists and gently hit the screen, with a crying voice in his mouth. "I have no grudge against you. Why did you harm me like this?" I don't know if it was my own punches and kicks that played a role, or if the previous voice heard Chen Zhou's demands. Suddenly, the previous voice rang out again in this space. Receive hidden instructions. System disconnection failed. Upon hearing this sound, Chen Zhou's consciousness slightly regained. After a while, he finally realized that since the system had failed to detach, wouldn't he be cleared of consciousness? Looking up, the full-screen red exclamation mark has disappeared, replaced by a pure transparent display screen. Looking at the calming display screen, Chen Zhou finally breathed a sigh of relief, turned around, and sat down on the ground, still feeling extremely scared. After calming down, Chen Zhou began to look around and looked around the screen, calculating that it would be better to escape quickly. This display screen is like a clean crystal glass. After circling around, he didn't find anything strange. If it weren't for the previous appearance of red characters, Chen Zhou would have thought it was just a piece of glass. Before he could finish speaking, as if protesting against Chen Zhou, a small line of words suddenly appeared on the screen. Normally, if you don't look carefully, you won't notice it. But the position where this line appears is impartial, right in front of Chen Zhou. The academic system, the wisdom crystallization of civilization development, comes from afar. Due to insufficient development of the host's brain domain, the system should have detached from the host and cleared the host's consciousness to conceal its existence. Due to multiple factors of the host itself, the system failed to detach and has now successfully bound to the host. Additionally, the host is requested to explore the system functions themselves. After Chen Zhou finished reading the text on the screen, it quickly faded away. Chen Zhou was stunned for a moment, still not quite understanding what was going on. The system succumbed. Thinking back to the words on the display screen, Chen Zhou carefully looked around the screen and even ran a little further, but he didn't notice anything except that the screen was still so transparent. Running to the display screen, Chen Zhou raised his hand. Since his writing skills were not good, he should have used some martial arts. It seemed like that was how it worked just now. Punch left and kick right on the floor. If you have nothing to do, bump your head and then stick your face against it to take a closer look. But, is there still nothing? Chen Zhou, who was a bit tired, sat silently in front of the screen and said with a bitter face, "There's nothing here. Explore a ball." As soon as Chen Zhou finished speaking, the pure display screen seemed to answer, and a line of text suddenly appeared. Before he could take a closer look, Chen Zhou felt as if someone was shaking his body. With a sudden inspiration, when he opened his eyes again, he only felt the light was a bit harsh. Director, look, he's awake." "How did you do it?" "I'll shake him." "Chen Zhou." "Me. The lights in the emergency room have gone out." Subsequently, Chen Zhou, lying on the hospital bed, was pushed out by the nurse. Seeing Chen Zhou's pale face, Huang Jia quickly ran over and asked with concern, "Chen Zhou, how are you?" "I'm fine," Chen Zhou replied briefly, "but he hasn't fully regained his senses until now." "What's going on? Is everything just now fake?" Seeing Chen Zhou's dazed appearance, Huang Jia wanted to ask something more, but was stopped by the nurse and said, "The patient needs to rest now. If there is anything, I will ask when the patient is better." After speaking, push Chen Zhou to the ward. Following the nurse's footsteps, Huang Jia prepared to head towards the ward. After being pulled apart, I noticed the owner of the small supermarket with a hesitant expression. Huang Jia thought for a moment and realized that he had already paid for his medical expenses, so he couldn't hold him back. After leaving the phone number of the small supermarket owner, I asked him to go back first. When entering the ward, Huang Jia saw Chen Zhou's eyes staring blankly at the ceiling, to the point where he didn't even react when he entered. Following Chen Zhou's gaze, Huang Jia couldn't see anything before speaking out, "What's wrong?" "You're being electrocuted." "No," Chen Zhou thought for a moment and said slowly, "Do you think those science fiction blockbusters and fantasy novels are all real or fake?" "What? Is science fiction blockbuster really fake?" Huang Jia was asked by Chen Zhou for a moment. "No, it's nothing." Turning to look at Huang Jia, Chen Zhou was also a bit embarrassed, as the bird system seriously affected people's intelligence. After a pause, he hesitated and said, "Well, Rhubarb, do you have any money? Can you take some money tomorrow to pick me up and discharge me? It's something I borrowed from you." After glancing at Chen Zhou, Huang Jia said, "The owner of the small supermarket has already paid for the medical expenses. Didn't you get caught up in a phone line like this? The boss has been following along. On the way to the hospital, you kept convulsing, but it scared people." Upon hearing Huang Jia's words, Chen Zhou's head was covered in black lines. After all, no one could have imagined that calling to check his score could lead to such a situation. That bird system won't be true or false for now, but it was convulsed by the phone line and probably won't be believed even when spoken out. Chen Zhou said helplessly, "It's not my fault for this, boss. Have you ever heard of an electric shock on a phone line?" Huang Jia thought to himself, "Aren't you still being electrocuted and constantly convulsing?" Looking at Chen Zhou's still pale face, he restrained his teasing words and said, "Then rest well and I'll bring some money over tomorrow." "Rhubarb." "Ah. Thank you." Taking a glance at Chen Zhou, Huang Jia waved his hand and said, "I understand." After Huang Jia left, Chen Zhou thought for a moment and began to close his eyes and shout out to the system. "Bird system. No, it's a top student system. Where are you? How can I find you? System Dad." After shouting for 3 minutes, Chen Zhou did not receive any response. Just as he thought it was his own illusion or being electrified to see the system, he was about to try looking for wires in the room when suddenly a change occurred in his eyes. He stood in front of the pure and transparent display screen again, or rather his consciousness entered that space once again. And before he woke up, the text that appeared on the screen was still there. Name: Chen Zhou. Rating: pseudo-bastard, true academic scumbag. Linguistics: unlocked. Natural science: unlocked. Applied science: unlocked. Optional task: unlocked. Chen Zhou looked awkwardly at the screen in front of him, couldn't help but curse in his heart, saying that I'm just a fake bastard, but you haven't unlocked it either. Can you let the labor explore a ball? A white light flashed across the screen, as if in response to Chen Zhou, and a new paragraph emerged. Given that the host's abilities in all aspects have not reached the minimum standard for system activation, the quantitative criteria for systemic linguistics have not been unlocked. Overall, all system functions have not been unlocked. Chen Zhou suddenly became speechless. Is there something wrong with this system? But as he continued to watch, he became confused and confused again. The display screen displays in bold. Here are the following solutions: uniqueness, mandatory. The host needs to retake the current Chinese college entrance examination in order to achieve the necessary merit-based admission. End of this chapter. How should you seize the relatively fair opportunity in Chapter 3? You are listening at novelfull.audio. How should you seize the relatively fair opportunity in Chapter 3? Chen Zhou reviewed the text on the display screen again to determine the necessity of selecting the best candidate for admission. What does this mean? Let me repeat it. Think too much, right? I finally managed to pass the entrance exam, and besides, all the books have been sold out. Chen Zhou's heart is a bit difficult to accept. Just after the college entrance examination, you immediately asked me to have another year. After a moment of silence, Chen Zhou wanted to ask why, but the display screen refreshed with new lines of text. Note: the college entrance examination is currently the only relatively fair competitive opportunity that the host can obtain. Being admitted to a first-class university will greatly determine the host's future resources in all aspects. Don't be confused by the small results in front of you, you still have great potential. Re-note: if you don't work hard when you're young, you'll be sad when you're old. Even if the host's brain development level is average, as long as the host is willing to change on their own, hard work will be the key to tapping into their potential. In this world of academic scum, the so-called selective admission is not only about the host, but also about who else. So, work hard, young man. Further note: even if the system is not yet activated, there will still be additional rewards from the system after completing the task. At the same time, after completing the task, the host will activate the system. Listen to this meaning: mandatory topic selection is equivalent to sending score questions. If you get into a good university, will you send a cheat system? How to say that? Chen Zhou was a bit tempted, and his words were very reasonable, and it seemed that his life was also in his hands. But this bird system judges itself as a fake bastard and a real academic scumbag. What is a world of academic scumbags? Those who are recommended to Yanda, those who score so much just because there are so many people with perfect scores, can they be called scumbags? That's not outstanding enough. Please click Accept Task as soon as possible, host. A constantly flashing Accept button appeared on the screen, waiting for him to press it. Chen Zhou looked at the constantly flashing buttons on the screen and found a problem. Why is there only Accept and no Disagree? Amidst his confusion, a line of text appeared below the button. Please click Accept Task as soon as possible. This is a required topic and cannot be rejected. Looking at the only option under the overbearing clause, Chen Zhou pondered it over and finally reached out and pressed the Accept button, which felt quite realistic. At the moment of pressing down, the display screen changed. Rows of information are emerging rapidly. The system activation prerequisite task has been initiated. Basic melody, 1. Name: Chen Zhou. Pre-rating: Science students, pseudo-conformists, unqualified students. Pre-rating for Chinese language, mathematics, and comprehensive science. Average. English pre-rating. Extremely average. Task description. Choose a repeating school, focus on preparing for the exam, and obtain a good pre-rating for each subject in the annual survey exam. Goal. 120, good, in Chinese, 120, good, in mathematics, 120, good, in English, and 210, good, in comprehensive science and technology. Note. This goal is the only criterion for judgment, and there is only one chance to complete the task. Description. After the task is completed, the next stage of the task will automatically start, and the task reward will be uniformly given to the host after the system activates the pre-task completion. Chen Zhou is not skeptical about this large pre-rating, but he quite agrees with the pre-ratings of various subjects. The goal is to achieve good English proficiency, which makes him feel a bit frustrated and helpless. This subject has always been a tough one. Looking at the final note, Chen Zhou spoke up and asked, "System, there's only one chance. What if I don't complete it?" If the host is unable to complete the task in the previous stage 1, it indicates that the host is indeed not even capable of learning. The system will not continue to waste time on the host, and will clear the awareness of unqualified hosts and search for qualified hosts. The text on the screen made Chen Zhou feel anxious for a moment. See, indeed, my life is not in my hands. Clearing consciousness means death. He has already experienced that feeling and doesn't want to do it again no matter what. After a pause, Chen Zhou thought of something and instinctively cleared his throat, saying, "System, how do you plan to help me complete this task? Pre-task can only rely on the host itself. I am the host, you are the system, won't you help me?" Pre-task can only rely on the host itself. Not even a bit of friendly sponsorship. Pre-task can only rely on the host itself. I'll go, this is completely different from the rhythm of the system taking me flying, isn't it? Chen Zhou looked at the person who relied on himself for 3 consecutive strokes and hesitated. "I regret it. Can I not choose? Don't clear my consciousness, can you leave automatically?" Warning. This is a mandatory topic. If the host regrets choosing, it means the task has failed. Crazy dad. The next morning, Huang Jia came with breakfast to pick up Chen Zhou and discharge him. Seeing his still pale face with 2 big panda eyes, Huang Jia handed over breakfast and said, "Did you sneak out and surf the internet all night last night?" Chen Zhou didn't answer the conversation and started eating breakfast. He didn't know how to respond to Huang Jia's words. "I can't say that I can't sleep at night. Walking in and out in the system space, I dream of the big red exclamation mark as soon as I fall asleep. I feel like I'm going to hang up, right?" After finishing breakfast and completing the discharge procedures, Chen Zhou and Huang Jia went to return the medical expenses to the owner of the small supermarket. Although the owner of the small supermarket said that it's okay for people to be fine and there isn't much money, there's no need to give it. But Chen Zhou still returned the money. After finishing these tasks, bidding farewell to Huang Jia, Chen Zhou took a bus back to a small county town in western Anhui. He spent the night finalizing the school for repeat studies and finally mustered some courage. "Mom and Dad, I'm back." As soon as Chen Zhou pushed open the door, he saw a sumptuous table of food. Dad Chen Zhangwo sat at the table, pouring wine into a glass. Mom Zhang Hongying is carrying vegetables and walking out of the kitchen. Little brother Chen Xiao is setting up bowls and chopsticks. "Xiao Zhou has returned, go wash your hands and prepare to eat," Zhang Hongying said with a smile to Chen Zhou as he walked in. "Did anyone come today?" Chen Zhou asked in confusion. "Who's here?" Zhang Hongying said with a smile as she put down the dishes. "Yesterday, Jai called and said that you all passed the first-tier exam. During the celebration, you drank too much and couldn't come back today. Your father went to buy the vegetables early in the morning and also wanted to celebrate for you. Well, we still have 2 drinks together. Brother, you see how good Dad is to you, Chen Zhou continued with a smile. Chen Zhou, in a few years, if you want to get a bachelor's degree like your brother, I'll go buy you a table of vegetables early in the morning, Chen Zhou said with a smile. Okay, I will definitely work hard, Chen Zhou made a face and quickly laughed. Looking at his father, Chen Zhou felt a bit ashamed and silently went to wash his hands. At the dinner table, the topic was about this year's college entrance examination. Chen Zhou took the exam one by one, which can be considered as putting the current top priority of the old Chen family down. I had a very happy meal, especially Chen Zhou. Due to his poor health, he has been quitting smoking and drinking. Today, he made an exception and drank several glasses. After dinner, Chen Zhou even ran to the balcony to smoke a cigarette. The family only smiled when they saw it, but did not stop it. While his mother and younger brother were tidying up the table, Chen Zhou walked up to his father on the balcony and whispered, "Dad, I have something I want to tell you." Looking at Chen Zhou in confusion, Chen Zhou said, "Xiaozhou, what's wrong?" "Dad, Chen Zhou took a deep breath and tried to calm down his tone, making this potentially unreasonable request. "I want to repeat it." Repeating. Chen Zhou extinguished his cigarette butt and turned to look at Chen Zhou with a surprised expression on his face. Chen Zhou nodded and said, "Well, I want to repeat my studies for a year and get into a better university." Upon hearing his son's words, Chen Zhou fell silent for a moment and slowly spoke up, "Xiaozhou, have you really figured it out? According to your grades, being able to get into a university is already a very good result. If you repeat the exam, the pressure will be even greater. Of course, as long as you think it through, your parents will support your decision," Chen Zhou continued, seeming afraid that he might not have explained it clearly. "Dad, I've figured it out. I want to seize this relatively fair opportunity and try again." Chen Zhou met his father's gaze, his eyes filled with determination. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Persistence brings rewards. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Persistence brings rewards. Chen Zhou originally thought that his father, considering his family conditions, younger brother, and father's own health, would carefully consider repeating the course, and even persuade himself not to repeat it. After all, objectively speaking, it is already a great joy to be able to get into a university. Unexpectedly, after hearing his own answer, the father did not hesitate and immediately agreed. Even on the mother's side, it is the father who does ideological work. In the following days, the old Chen family seemed to have never celebrated Chen Zhou's admission to a university, and returned to the state of preparing for the college entrance examination a year ago. This operation not only stunned the neighbors, but also confused the elders such as Chen Zhou's uncles and aunts. The day before yesterday, you, old Chen, called and boasted that your son had passed the entrance exam and wanted to invite everyone to a thank-you banquet. The next day, there was no news. Also, is Xiaozhou ready to repeat his studies? Regardless of how his family and friends in the outside world view his decision to repeat his studies, Chen Zhou has already started according to his own plan. The books and rereading materials that have already been sold were retrieved from old bookstores, and a brand new 5-year college entrance exam 3-year simulation English was also purchased along with it. In Chen Zhou's analysis, it seems that among the small goals set by the system, he has never scored 100 points in English, which is too tricky. To achieve the small goals set by the system, Chen Zhou must change his attitude towards learning English all along. "I used to only know how to memorize words from an English book, but the result was that I would forget the words I memorized the day before yesterday for no more than a week. When we met again, no one knew anyone." After some thought, Chen Zhou decided to start by memorizing words. However, Chen Zhou has set himself a sustainable learning plan of 100 words in 2 days, 300 words in a week, and comprehensive review on Sunday. Not seeking speed, not seeking abundance, only hoping that one can still recognize who is who in 2 days. As for other disciplines, Chen Zhou has started the practice of answering questions. The sea of questions tactic may not be the most effective, but it must be useful. With this belief, Chen Zhou began a cycle of words and papers. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing their learning plan on the first day. A good start is half the battle, come on, young man. Chen Zhou closed his book and the sound of the system echoed in his mind. You're right, success is one step closer to me. Chen Zhou smiled slightly and drank this bowl of chicken soup. With a hint of pride, Chen Zhou went to bed. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing their learning plan on the 10th day. The cultivation of good habits depends on self-persistence, and 10 days of persistence is already the starting point for habit cultivation. Come on, young man. Oh, it's been 10 days now. Chen Zhou glanced at the draft paper filled with words, thinking back and calculating in his mind. I did remember 350 words. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing their learning plan on the 30th day. Good self-directed learning habits will benefit you for life. With 30 days of accumulation, the host has taken a small step forward. Don't let your laziness drag you back to the starting point, come on, young man. You're too punctual, even more punctual than my mom calling me to eat. Chen Zhou can't help but complain about the bird system. He doesn't know who he learned it from. The voice of chicken soup is heard once a day and never stops. He's going to vomit after drinking. The draft paper has already been filled with many sheets, and the test paper has also been written with many sheets. Everything I see on my own looks like ABC. As expected, the system is right. Laziness wants to drag me back to the starting point. Chen Zhou lay in bed and murmured in a dreamy voice, then let's drag me back. I want games, I want to. Perhaps out of his own responsibility, Chen Zhou, who enjoys fishing for 3 days and drying his net for 2 days, has remained rare for over a month this time. Looking at the exam papers piled up over a month ago and the draft paper filled with words, Chen Zhou couldn't believe that he had really persevered according to his study plan for so many days. This is the first time I have consciously and proactively studied for such a long time. When so many witnesses were presented in front of him, a hint of genuine happiness appeared in his heart. After waiting silently for a while, the anticipated voice rang out in my mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing their learning plan on the 50th day. Although persistent self-discipline may be difficult, the joy of the day of harvest will be returned 100 times. Come on, young man. It's the familiar chicken soup voice again, this despicable cheering boy. Chen Zhou pursed his lips and said, I feel the bitterness, but where is the joy? He felt that this was a deliberate reminder from the system, and the daily cheering of the youth was like a countdown to becoming an idiot. After all, if the task is not completed, he who has been cleared of consciousness will probably become an idiot even if he doesn't die. He sighed softly, thinking that Huang Jiayi was about to start a happy life as a college student, and he felt even more that he was really struggling. Free internet speed, delicate girl, lovely teacher, I'm here. Chen Zhou remembers that this was what Huang Jiayi said after learning that he was going to repeat his studies. This was originally the life he was going to have, but now, he is envious and jealous. Sigh. Chen Zhou sighed heavily again, stood up from his desk, tidied up the book drafts, and counted his luggage again. I have to report to the repeating class tomorrow. Ding! An unexpected system sounded again. Do we have to celebrate for 50 days today and have me drink chicken soup twice? With this thought in mind, Chen Zhou's systematic voice provided the answer. System reminder. The host will start studying at the repeating school tomorrow. The learning plan during this period is no longer suitable for the host's next stage of learning. Please develop a new learning plan based on the school's schedule as soon as possible and persist. Chen Zhou wanted to roast, but the sound of the system did not stop. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the pre-hidden task. Learning is about perseverance, uniqueness. Task description. Without the supervision of teachers and parents, study in an orderly manner according to one's own learning plan, cultivate the habit of self-directed learning, and gain some results. Completion status. For the first time in the host's life, she has persisted in 50 days of self-directed learning, initially developed learning habits, and successfully memorized 986 words, deepening her proficiency in problem-solving. Obtain hidden reward. Set of incorrect questions, uniqueness. Sleeping in bed, persistence leads to gains. Is it so real? The feeling of being slapped in the face in an instant is really sour and refreshing. Chen Zhou had an illusion that he was targeted by the system. Otherwise, why would a hidden task suddenly appear? Is it a bit shabby to only reward a collection of incorrect questions for hidden tasks? Isn't it common to reward special items for hidden tasks in games? Thinking of this, Chen Zhou closed his eyes and consciousness came to the system space. A backpack-like pattern appeared on the screen, with a red dot on it. Chen Zhou opened his backpack and saw an exercise book lying quietly inside. Is it really a collection of incorrect questions? After thinking about it, a little is better than nothing, not taking it for nothing. Chen Zhou reached out to take out the set of incorrect questions, but his fingers touched the exercise book, which only contained an explanatory paragraph. The set of incorrect questions, uniqueness, automatically records the incorrect questions in the host's 50-day learning plan. Seeing this explanation, it seems a bit impressive that it automatically recorded the wrong questions for me. But how can I take it out? Please exit the system space and take a look at your backpack. Following the system's sound prompt, Chen Zhou exited the system space and quickly found a brand new exercise book in his backpack. Sleeping slot. What about magic tricks? So cute. In order not to disturb my family, the already suppressed voice still sounded a bit loud. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Resumption class opening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Resumption class opening on August 15th, it was scorching heat. Time has also come to the start of the resumption class. Wanxi City, Maochang High School. At the school gate, there is a sea of people. Undoubtedly, it is a famous college entrance examination factory in Anhui province, nationwide. Chen Zhou felt that the temperature around him seemed to have risen by a few degrees, and couldn't help but secretly click his tongue. Chen Zhou initially just thought that since he was going to repeat his studies, he would choose the school with the strictest management. He was afraid that over time, he would not be able to control himself. Maochang High School is known for its strict management in Anhui province. Later, after Chen Zhou checked the news about Maochang High School, he found out that the school was also known as the largest college entrance examination factory in Asia. Every year, there are tens of thousands of candidates sent for the exam, which refers to the number of candidates. At first, Chen Zhou didn't quite understand the concept of 10,000 people mentioned in the news, but it wasn't until today when he saw the influx of people at this school that he finally understood something. Seeing more and more people in the school, Chen Zhou quickened his pace and flexibly squeezed through the crowd. Finally completing all the admission procedures, Chen Zhou struggled to squeeze out the crowded crowd and quickly took a breath of fresh air. With so many people under the scorching sun, he almost managed to get heatstroke. Walking to the small shop at the school gate, Chen Zhou bought a bottle of ice water and poured it down with a thud. It was only then that he felt like he had come back to life. Are there too many people here? They are all repeat students. Holding a cold mineral water bottle, Chen Zhou looked at the crowded school, but his heart couldn't calm down. As the system says, these people are all trying to seize the only relatively fair opportunity currently available. Most of the people who come to the school to register at this time are repeat classes. That's why there are so many people at Maochang High School. The small shop owner answered Chen Zhou's question with a sense of pride in his words. Boss, get me a bottle of water, thank you. Okay, what kind do you want? Mineral water is good. This voice is so pleasant. Looking at Chen Zhoushuan's voice, this person is also so cool. Even if his forehead and hair are wet with sweat, it is still quite beautiful. Chen Zhou asked, are you also here to repeat? The girl glanced at Chen Zhou, nodded, and then glanced at him again. Chen Zhou also noticed this gaze. Was it attracted by my handsome face? That's so embarrassing, the girl asked. How do you come to repeat? Chen Zhou. I didn't do well in the exam. What about you? I didn't do well in the exam, the girl replied. Cough, cough. Chen Zhou coughed twice. It seemed that he was a top student. There are only two types of people who choose to repeat. One thinks they didn't do well in the exam, and the other hopes they can do well. Strictly speaking, Chen Zhou should be considered the third type. Seeing that the girl had lost her desire to speak, Chen Zhou didn't know what to say. The two of them stood like this for a while. I'll go back to school first. The girl threw the finished bottle into the trash can, said to Chen Zhou, and walked towards the school. Chen Zhou thought for a moment, did he forget something? Yes, this Maochang High School is too unfair. Why only provide accommodation for girls, and boys can only rent a house outside? It's not convenient. It doesn't feel so hot anymore, and Chen Zhou is also preparing to go back. Children nowadays don't know how to seize opportunities. What a lovely little girl, this is a great opportunity. The words of the small shop owner behind him made Chen Zhou stumble and almost fall. A lovely little girl. It's quite cute. No, so what's wrong? Didn't I come to repeat it? Where is learning important for girls? Returning to the rental house, Chen's parents have already helped tidy up the room. Chen Zhou had lunch with his parents and repeatedly refused his mother's request to accompany him to study and take care of himself, sending his parents back to the county town in a car. Until the bus left the station, Chen Zhou silently left. Growing up so big, it was his first time living and studying alone in a strange place. Taking back his thoughts, Chen Zhou looked at his watch and realized that there were still 2 hours left until evening self-study. After the end of today's registration, the repeating class will start evening self-study in the evening. As for the division of repeating classes, they are temporarily based on their college entrance examination scores, arranged in descending order from the highest score, with each class consisting of 170 students. Correspondingly, the ratio of teaching resources and teaching staff will also tilt towards the top-ranked classes. Chen Zhou scored more than 1 point in the first tier and was assigned to the Science 6 class of the repeating class, which can only be considered average. However, it is said that there will be a division exam in a month, and the classes will be redivided based on the exam results. After being divided into different classes, there will be no further division until the college entrance examination. That is to say, Chen Zhou only has this opportunity to advance to class 1. Reading comprehension. Little Tom down the street calls our dog misremembered words. Characteristic, physical, revolutionary. Appreciation of poetry and prose. Sending Meng Haoren to Guangling. I went, and this collection of incorrect questions actually recorded all the words I had memorized incorrectly one by one. Also, I copied the entire text for reading comprehension in English and Chinese. Returning to the rental house, Chen Zhou thought there was still some time, so he took out the set of incorrect questions that the system had rewarded him with. As he flipped through the set of incorrect questions and compared them to the questions he had made in the 50-day exam, he had to marvel once again at the magical technique of the system. This set of incorrect questions is priceless. If it could be mass-produced, wouldn't it? Time has come to the point where evening self-study is approaching. Chen Zhou packed up his textbook materials and went to the school to order a bowl of beef soup. He quickly solved the problem and walked towards the school. My aspiration is to move forward without hesitation, not to disappoint my heart, not to disappoint my life. Only by burying oneself in hard work can one stand out. Along the way, the number of parents sending students has decreased significantly, revealing the true face of this school. Almost every few steps taken is a brand new slogan with various motivational words. Inspirational building. Maochang High School is a famous holy land for repeat education. This small building has only 5 floors, but it can accommodate tens of thousands of repeat classes. Although he had heard of it a long time ago, searched for relevant news, and was mentally prepared, Chen Zhou was still somewhat shocked when he stepped into the Science 6 classroom. This kind of shock may not necessarily be good. The classroom is densely packed with over 170 desks, with rows spaced less than 1 meter apart. Standing at the door, it feels as if they are connected. Chen Zhou noticed that some students had already arrived in the classroom, and on the blackboard in front of them, it was written. Study in class at 5.30. Entering the classroom, Chen Zhou saw that some desks had their names written with chalk or a book placed on them, occupying their seats in advance. Taking a glance at the still empty seats, Chen Zhou understood that these seats would definitely be fully occupied by someone who didn't fall to the ground. After thinking for a moment, Chen Zhou walked through the narrow aisle between his desks and arrived at the last row. He found a seat by the window and sat down. To his surprise, after sitting in the last row, there was still an arm's distance left behind, which was much more spacious than the front row. Stretching his muscles and bones, Chen Zhou looked at the blackboard at the back of the classroom, where there were signatures left by the previous graduating repeating student. Is the next stop heaven? Even if you're disappointed, you can't despair. Roll up your sleeves, roll up your pants legs, and follow the teacher to work hard. It's quite interesting. Then roll up your sleeves and work hard. Buried his head in the exam, when Chen Zhou lifted his head again, there were still 5 minutes left before the designated time. At this point, the classroom is basically filled with very few empty seats, and most people are burying their heads in flipping through books and solving problems. Next to Chen Zhou came a tall and thin boy wearing glasses, who was organizing his textbook materials. Seeing Chen Zhou looking over, he took the initiative to reach out and said, "Hello classmate, my name is Zhang Yifan. You can call me Xiaofan, and we will be desk mates from now on." Chen Zhou, ear to ear Chen, the boat that has burned its boats. Chen Zhou politely shook the other person's hand. "I'll go, burn the boat." Zhang Yifan paused and said, "Is that why you came to Maochang High School?" Chen Zhou. Zhang Yifan also felt that his joke was a bit awkward and turned to saying, "From now on, we will be sitting at the same table for a year, helping each other." The old class is here. Chen Zhou nodded and looked at the classroom door. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Hell to Heaven. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Hell to Heaven. The footsteps echoed from far to near, and the homeroom teacher arrived. Taking a glance at the somewhat dull classroom, Su Shaoan coughed lightly, walked up to the podium, picked up chalk, and wrote his name on the blackboard. He introduced himself and said, "Hello everyone, classmates. I am your homeroom teacher, Su Shaoan. Today is the first class meeting of our Science 6 class." After a pause, he remembered something and spoke in a relaxed tone, "I have good news and bad news to tell you. So, do you want to hear the good news first or the bad news?" No one spoke up, everyone looked at Su Shaoan in surprise. Is this the class teacher of Maochang High School, known for his serious management? Good news. Silent for a minute, I don't know who whispered a sentence. Su Shaoan quickly followed suit and said, "The good news is that everyone can receive my 1-week teaching in class 6 of science." What about the bad news? Someone gradually let go. The bad news, of course, is that everyone will face the division exam in a week and can only receive my teaching in class 6 of science for a week. Su Shaoan said and sighed. Students. Cut, this old class is too narcissistic. Looking left and right, Chen Zhou found that most of his classmates had relaxed. The atmosphere that had been present since entering the classroom, dull, oppressive, and fearful of the unknown, was thus resolved by this young and slightly chubby homeroom teacher. Su Shaoan also noticed the emotional changes among the students and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he drew the gourd according to the picture. He watched a video saying that when school starts, don't put too much pressure on students right away. Try to help them relax and gradually increase pressure in their later studies, which will have unexpected effects. Thanks to someone brave, he didn't feel too embarrassed. Well, if this student is still in class 6, he can take good care of him in the future. Su Shaoan moved a chair and sat down. Don't cut yet. Do you know how long I've been working at Maochang High School? Twisting his body and finding a comfortable position, Su Shaoan began. Roughly speaking, it's been 10 years now, and I've been here since I first started working. How could I say I'm experienced? And, let me tell you, the high school entrance exam scores of the students in the repeating class I just taught are basically all above 570. If you took the 570 exam this year, you probably wouldn't have come here, would you? Is it really fake? Can I deceive you? Don't believe it, I'm with you. Although this homeroom teacher may seem a bit unreliable, after listening to his boasting and looking at the lively atmosphere in the class, Chen Zhou silently praised him. This old Su has some skills. Well, it's a bit far-fetched. Let's get back to the point and talk about the division exam. The class division exam is basically the information that Chen Zhou received. In previous years, it was 1 month after the start of school, but this year it was advanced and started 1 week after the start of school. I know some of you came here because you failed the college entrance examination. Oh, now you have the opportunity to prove yourself and clear your grudges. If you get into class 1, you will be the most beautiful student in the school. Hey, that, broken kettle, my name is Chen Zhou. It's Chen Zhou who broke the cauldron. Chen Zhou regretted saying that he had burned his boat. Zhang Yifan smiled and said, I have a deep impression. Ha ha ha. So what, I heard that the teaching staff of class 1 is the best in the school. Why don't you take a break? Otherwise, we only have 1 week of desk mates to work with. Upon reflection, Chen Zhou realized that this was the one who failed the college entrance examination, and he was also very confident in himself. After thinking for a moment, Chen Zhou said, Good luck to you. You have successfully entered class 1. As for me, I think Lao Su is quite interesting. It would be great if he were in class 6. Taking a glance at Chen Zhou, Zhang Yifan said, No, you don't understand. I made a mistake in the college entrance examination, otherwise I wouldn't have come here at all. Now that I have the opportunity to prove myself, I will definitely seize it. Otherwise, I will feel too frustrated in my heart. For someone like Chen Zhou, who is even rated as a real academic scumbag by the system, I really don't understand Zhang Yifan's feelings, especially since he did well in the college entrance examination. Chen Zhou could only say, I'll do my best, you go ahead. I'll keep an eye on you. As soon as the words fell, the sound of the system echoed in my mind. Ding! The basic construction needs to be strengthened even more. It is recommended that the host seize the opportunity and enter class 1 in the division exam. Chen Zhou. Not so bad, always pinching and pointing it out. Is this also necessary? Chen Zhou murmured softly. Just a suggestion. It's not related to the pre-task. The system's voice rang out again. That's good, you suddenly stood up and scared me. Chen Zhou was still not very confident about being admitted to class 1. What are you saying? No, it's nothing. Zhang Yifan looked at Chen Zhou with a puzzled expression on his face. He heard Chen Zhou muttering and thought he had said something else. At the end of the class meeting, Su Shaoan made some specific requirements. No electronic devices such as mobile phones are allowed in the classroom, no food is allowed, and discussions are not allowed in class. Respect the teacher and do not argue with them in person. The most important thing is not to fall in love. If someone passes a small note to convey a message, just tell them and they will definitely give both parties a satisfactory and impressive answer. Of course, these requirements are the same whether they are in class 6, or assigned to other classes. Finally, Su Shaoan solemnly emphasized, everyone came here to get into a satisfactory university. So, please put aside your personality and follow the teacher. I believe you will have a satisfactory result. Please remember, this is the hell leading to heaven. At the end of the class meeting, around 9:30 p.m., Su Shaoan distributed a schedule and a lecture to each student, and then announced the end of school. This is probably the most relaxed evening of Chen Zhou's repeating career at Maochang High School. After returning to the rental house, Chen Zhou took a shower and planned to develop a new study plan according to the school schedule. The daily routine of Maochang High School is to enter the classroom at 6:30, start 40 minutes of self-study, then have 20 minutes of rest and then start regular classes. For classes in the morning end at 11 o'clock. The first class in the afternoon doesn't start until 3 o'clock, but the school requires students to be in the classroom before 1 o'clock to start their afternoon self-study. The end of self-study is from regular class until 5:35 p.m., with an additional 45 minutes reserved for you to eat. Then, the evening self-study begins and continues until 10:30 p.m. Almost the entire day was occupied by the schedule. Chen Zhou scratched his head and formulated Mao's study plan, at best filling the gap in self-study time. With English as the main subject and other subjects as auxiliary, Chen Zhou made simple arrangements for his study plan in his schedule. Of course, the subsequent events still proved that Chen Zhou's thinking was too simple. Can you think of anything that the school wouldn't think of? After finishing these, Chen Zhou raised his hand and glanced at the time. It was only 10:30, and it was still early before 12 o'clock. After all, do college students go to bed before 12 o'clock? Isn't that a waste of life? After taking the lecture notes given at the class meeting, Chen Zhou began to learn. When Chen Zhou looked at his watch again, it was already 12:56. Is it necessary for the first lecture to cover all subjects and add so many practice questions? What Chen Zhou didn't know was that this lecture was not just for reading, but also for doing. Taking another glance at the lecture notes, Chen Zhou thought for a moment and took out the set of incorrect questions, preparing to copy the wrong questions from the lecture notes onto the set of incorrect questions. He seems to have made quite a few mistakes. Ha! Sleeping slot. When Chen Zhou flipped through the collection of incorrect questions to the latest page, his hand holding the pen paused in the air. The question he did wrong was actually automatically recorded in the wrong question set. Picking up the set of incorrect questions, Chen Zhou flipped back again, looking incredulous. Chen Zhou opened the lecture notes again and checked them. No omissions, all the incorrect question sets have been recorded. Automatic transmission error question set. This is so terrifying. Chen Zhou can be described as looking back at his collection of incorrect questions step by step, seems to have become thicker, right? It wasn't until this moment that he felt like he had encountered something extraordinary. So, what about accepting the system's suggestion? Still not accepting it. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Adapting to a fast rhythm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Adapting to a fast rhythm. In a daze, Chen Zhou was awakened by an alarm clock. He, who habitually pressed the alarm and wanted to lie down for a while longer, suddenly became agitated and got out of bed. On the first day of school, be proactive. Wash up, tidy up, and do it all in one go. Go out, go to school. The sun in the sky is also going out, it's a new day. Chen Zhou bought breakfast on the roadside and walked towards the classroom while eating. From afar, Chen Zhou could hear the sound of lang books. Walking to the door of the classroom, I realized that the homeroom teacher Su Shaoan was swaying in the classroom. Hurry up to your seat, take out an English book, and start memorizing words. It took Chen Zhou over 20 minutes to complete today's task of memorizing vocabulary. Looking around, the homeroom teacher has already left the classroom. He looked at Zhang Yifan and wanted to ask why the old class came so early, but saw that Zhang Yifan was winking hard. Following Zhang Yifan's guidance, Chen Zhou turned his head and glanced out the window. There was a person whose eyes exchanged for a second. He quickly lowered his head and continued to memorize the words. Chen Zhou felt that at that moment, it should have been an electric spark. Standing outside the window is none other than the homeroom teacher Su Shaoan. Why do teachers have the potential to be spies? Chen Zhou muttered inwardly, but didn't look around until the morning self-study was over. Following the bell of the end of the morning self-study, Su Shaoan strolled into the classroom again. If you should go to the bathroom, don't hold your urine, it's not good for your body. If you don't want to go to the bathroom, I suggest you lie on your desk for a while, even if you squint for 5 minutes, to stay energized for morning classes. Upon hearing the old class's words, Chen Zhou didn't take it seriously. He felt that his energy was quite good now. He didn't sleep well, so it was better to practice exercises than to sleep. There are many people who share the same ideas as Chen Zhou, and many of them have taken out their problem sets and worked hard to write 2 questions. Some people, after listening to Su Shaoan's words, lie on the table and take a nap. For those classmates who still remember activities, chattering, and farting, Su Shaoan didn't say a word, just walked over lightly. Before we could reach it, the sound was getting quieter and quieter. By the time the first class in the morning started, Chen Zhou understood how kind the suggestion was. You're really tired. There may be reasons why the biological clock is not set properly, but going to bed too late at night and yawning continuously in the morning is inevitable. So, Maochang High School has always had an incomprehensible custom of going to bed early. The morning class was quite fulfilling, ignoring the time spent yawning. The teachers explained the lecture notes and questions given at last night's class meeting, and Chen Zhou also clarified the knowledge points he didn't understand. Then, the teachers also distributed new lecture notes. After school, Chen Zhou rushed towards the school gate with the flood of students to meet his stomach needs. After searching for a while, Chen Zhou finally found a small snack shop for his family and ordered a side dish of rice. It was said that there were fewer people, but I still waited for about half an hour before waiting for my own food. By the time Chen Zhou finished eating, it was already past 12 o'clock and there were still many students waiting in the store. No wonder the lunch break was a bit longer. Thinking that the afternoon break was only 45 minutes, he made a decision that made him feel wise. I left a phone call with the boss. As long as I come for dinner next time, I will call the boss in advance to make an appointment. Stepping out of the snack shop, Chen Zhou took the wrong question set from his backpack and found a cool and sparsely populated place at school. While reading the questions, he took a walk to digest his food. Is that her? Chen Zhou saw the girl from that day again. The weather is very hot, and the girl is still dressed in cool clothes. She is walking towards the girl's dormitory. Chen Zhou found that the place he was looking for seemed to be facing the girl's dormitory. I don't know which class she belongs to, do you want to ask? Chen Zhou hesitated and the girl's figure disappeared into the dormitory building. Lying trough. What are you thinking? Look down and read the question. When Chen Zhou returned to the classroom, he found that almost all the students were taking a nap, while the homeroom teacher Su Shaoan was sitting in class. 5 minutes before the start of the afternoon self-study, Su Shaoan stood up and clapped his hands, waking up all the classmates to wash their faces and wake up. After Su Shaoan finished speaking, he didn't leave. Instead, he waited for all the students to return to the classroom and emphasized one thing. During these 2 hours of lunch, have a good meal and don't do anything else. It's meaningless. You must take a nap immediately, otherwise you won't be able to sustain your energy until the evening self-study ends. Upon hearing these words, Chen Zhou realized that it was the old class who made them sleep, no wonder they were so unified. Thinking of his morning state, Chen Zhou secretly exclaimed that it was broken and that he had not learned from it in a timely manner. Starting from the afternoon self-study, I feel pretty good and my problem-solving skills are still good. At the beginning of the regular class, I can't shake off my drowsiness. The feeling of half asleep, half awake, and sleepwalking in the ocean of knowledge is so wonderful. Chen Zhou was thinking that he must have understood the knowledge explained by the teacher, otherwise why would he keep nodding? At the end of the first class, Chen Zhou decisively went to wash his face with cold water, so as not to be trapped like a dog in the next 2 classes. Finally, after finishing school in the afternoon, Chen Zhou arrived at the snack shop where he had lunch and quickly resolved the dinner reservation before returning to the classroom. In the classroom, several people were eating xiaobing, baked cake and griddle, and other food they had just bought. It seemed that they didn't have time to wait for a decent dinner. Chen Zhou walked quickly to his seat, sat down, leaned over the table, and squinted for a while. It wasn't until Zhang Yifan woke him up and told him he was going to study late that he rubbed his eyes and went to wash his face. The evening self-study is assigned to teachers of various subjects, and when flipped over, they are all test papers and questions. Ringing bell, at 10:30 p.m., the evening self-study ended, and the school schedule for the day came to an end. Returning to the rental house, Chen Zhou took out the exam paper and lecture notes given by the teacher from his backpack. There were a total of 8 small papers and 6 lecture notes with questions. A daily routine outside of school begins. Taking a glance at these papers and lecture notes, Chen Zhou took out the study plan he had filled out and made a few strokes on it with a pen, only retaining some insightful supplements. For the first time, Chen Zhou felt that there was not enough time. Ding! Considering the actual situation of the host, the number of days the learning plan will be executed will no longer be recorded in the future, and only the development of the host's autonomous learning habits will be observed. Do we also need to notify if we cancel the chicken soup? Chen Zhou muttered, not wanting to bother with the system. Open the paper and start doing the exercises. In order to complete the questions in these papers and lecture notes, Chen Zhou worked tirelessly until around 1 o'clock in the middle of the night. This is the first day, it's the rhythm of Maochang High School. So tired, unable to extricate myself. The next day, Chen Zhou learned a lot, not only Chen Zhou, but almost everyone learned well. Since you have chosen to come here for a repeat study, you must adapt to the tense pace of Maochang High School as soon as possible. Unable to adapt means elimination. After the morning self-study ended, Su Shaoan gave another suggestion. Don't disturb others' rest. Those who should use the restroom should immediately go to the restroom, and when you come back, quickly lie on your desk. At noon, as Chen Zhou had made an appointment in advance to cover the rice, he had some extra time left and went according to his study plan. After finishing the meal, I went to the shady area opposite the girls' dormitory, reading exercises and digesting my food. Then returned to the classroom at 12:30 sharp for a nap, and take a half-hour break to protect the afternoon and evening. After experiencing some discomfort, with the passage of time and Chen Zhou's proactive changes, things slowly improved. For students who are immersed in the bombardment of teacher papers and lecture notes in a week, time is really unbearable, and time is also very fast. The last evening self-study of this week has ended. The teachers of this school really live up to their reputation. Zhang Yifan, who walked out of the school gate with Chen Zhou, sighed. What's going on? Zhang Yifan roast. It's so abnormal. I don't care about students at all. The daily task is too heavy. Chen Zhou smiled and said, but many people do indeed get into their ideal schools after repeating their studies. It should be like what Lao Tzu said, this should be the hell leading to heaven. Sigh, Zhang Yifan sighed. Repeated studies were all created by himself. Who could have let himself not perform well and not be willing to go to college like this? Thinking of the class division exam that will start tomorrow, Chen Zhou joked, when you get into class 1, and become the most beautiful kid, maybe you will receive preferential treatment. Shaking his head, Zhang Yifan said, I've inquired before. Class 1 is the storefront of the repeating class, and they are even more tired than us. After a pause, Zhang Yifan spoke seriously and said, however, no matter what, I will definitely get into class 1. After thinking for a moment, he added, so what, you really don't want to challenge yourself? Don't just be a desk mate for a week. Me, I will do my best. Chen Zhou yawned and continued, I won't tell you more. I need to go back to sleep. I'm so tired. After speaking, Chen Zhou waved his hand and disappeared on the path back to the house. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Division Exam in Progress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Division Exam in Progress. The alarm clock rang on time, and Chen Zhou stretched lazily. It felt great not to have to wake up early for self-study. Although there are only 2 days for exams. The time arrangement for the class division exam is consistent with that of the Anhui Provincial College entrance examination. The exam will last for 2 days. On the first day, there will be Chinese language in the morning and math in the afternoon. On the second day, there will be science synthesis, literature synthesis, in the morning and English in the afternoon. Chen Zhou's exam room happens to be in class 6 of science, with invigilator Su Shaowen. When he arrived at the examination room, almost all the seats were fully occupied. Everyone is flipping through Chinese language review materials, preparing for the exam. Chen Zhou glanced at the time and muttered to himself, after squeezing a week of time, you can still see it. He really doesn't want to read anymore, it's been a bit difficult to be bombed this week. What are you doing here so early? If you don't rest well, you don't know how to balance work and rest at all. Moreover, Chen Zhou felt that if he had to cram things into his mind so much time before the exam, his mind would definitely be confused by the time of the exam. Following the seat number, Chen Zhou found his seat and sat down, looking out the window. In summer, the poplar trees are lush and the fallen leaves sway freely in the wind. What's wrong? Before the exam, wander around in all directions. Some familiar voices called Chen Zhou's thoughts back, and he looked up awkwardly at Su Shaowen. Take a good exam, even if you don't want to enter the first few classes, you still have to stay in class 6, right? Su Shaowen said and walked away. Chen Zhou looked at Su Shaowen's back and murmured like a mosquito, you can't argue with the system in public places. It scared me to death. 10 minutes before leaving the exam, Su Shaowen cleared his voice and said, now let's start distributing the exam papers. After receiving the papers, don't rush to write them. It's time to start working on the questions. First, check if there are any unclear or damaged parts on the paper, and fill in the name and admission number. After speaking, I started distributing the test papers with another invigilator. This opening statement is similar to the college entrance examination. Since the first exam, Maochang High School has been preparing for the transition to the college entrance examination. After receiving the test paper, Chen Zhou checked it again. After confirming that the paper was not damaged or unclear, he filled in his own information and waited for the password to start answering. This step is very necessary. If you don't check the test paper and write that you have found any problems, it will seriously delay the answering time. How does this test paper feel familiar? Just not being able to write answers with a pen didn't prevent Chen Zhou from starting to work on the questions carefully. The more he looked at these questions, the more he felt a sense of familiarity. Especially with a few multiple-choice questions, I seem to have done several times on some real college entrance exam questions or simulated test papers. Answering questions begins. The hour hand and minute hand were at a 90-degree angle, and Su Shaowen's voice rang out on time. It seems that everyone is worried about slowing down. As soon as Su Shaowen's voice fell, the exam room heard the rustling sound of the pen tip rubbing against the paper. Moreover, there were particularly neat and uniform movements in the examination room, flipping through the test papers to find questions and filling in answers with closed eyes. Sleeping trough. I remember, this is this year's Chinese college entrance exam question. After flipping through the exam paper 3 times, Chen Zhou, who had not yet started writing, finally realized. I don't know who wrote the test paper. In today's Chinese language test for the class division exam, the original questions from this year's college entrance examination were directly used in proportion to half of the score. For these students who are repeating the college entrance examination, these questions are simply not too familiar. It has only been 2 months, and who doesn't know who? So with a question answering order, the whole room was neat and uniform. After reading around the candidates who were writing their answers vigorously, Chen Zhou thought for a moment and flipped the test paper to the essay topic. The essay question is not the original question for the college entrance examination. After carefully reviewing the question, Chen Zhou pondered for a while, picked up his pen, and started writing on the answer sheet. A large part of the original questions in the front can be written without much thinking, and it also accounts for such a large score. So, isn't the focus of this exam on essay questions? This is the conclusion drawn by Chen Zhou after his own analysis. He believes that writing an essay first can lead to good thinking, high scores in the essay, and time for other topics. In short, there are many benefits. Well, that's how he usually does it, and writing has always been one of his highlights. As he was writing, Chen Zhou felt something in his heart. He looked up and saw Su Shaowen standing next to him. This time it was Su Shaowen's turn to smile awkwardly. He was already a Chinese teacher, and when he saw Chen Zhou writing an essay as soon as he came up, he suddenly became interested and quietly walked behind Chen Zhou. Looking at it, I didn't expect this kid to write quite well. He could even quote from classics, poetry, and prose, especially the line, "How can I know heaven without going through hell?" It had a bit of an internal flavor, so I accidentally read it too much. Signal Chen Zhou to continue. Su Shaowen slowly leaves and continues to patrol the examination room. After finishing his essay, Chen Zhou found that there was still 1 hour left. Fortunately, there was still enough time, but to his surprise, he spent 1 hour and a half writing his essay, which was his first time. Flipping through the test paper, Chen Zhou began to rely on his memory to print the answers to the remaining questions on the answer sheet. 11:28. With 2 minutes left until the end of the exam, Chen Zhou smiled and handed in his papers early and left. I only hate why this is not the final exam at the end of the semester. Otherwise, give the system a big surprise. The math exam doesn't start until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so the school requires returning to class at noon for regular self-study. When Chen Zhou finished his lunch and returned to the class, many people had already arrived, each with a happy smile, discussing the morning Chinese exam. Returning to his seat, Chen Zhou took the set of incorrect questions from this year's college entrance exam math exam, which he had left behind during the summer vacation. He planned to take another look and become familiar with it. After all, even if Chinese is done like this, maybe even mathematics. What is this? Chen Zhou, who thought he was being deceived, flipped through the collection of incorrect questions to the end, where he saw the questions he had answered incorrectly in this morning's Chinese language exam, including appreciating ancient poetry and understanding the entire text through reading. This Nima, just finished the exam and you jotted down all the wrong questions. You're really amazing. This set of incorrect questions surprised Chen Zhou too much, so he quickly calculated his exam score based on it. If you don't add the composition, it will be about 70% to 80%, which is estimated that everyone has the same score. It seems that my analysis is correct, just look at the composition. My little bright spot, you should give it some strength. Chen Zhou praised his wisdom after calculating the score. In no time, Zhang Yifan arrived, and just as he sat down, he grabbed Chen Zhou and started talking about the Chinese test paper. Chen Zhou suddenly asked, "How was the composition written?" "What?" Zhang Yifan was taken aback and replied, "How do I know? Can I still estimate the score of a Chinese essay?" It wasn't until Su Shaoan came to sit in class that the classroom finally calmed down. At 2:30 p.m., Su Shaoan opened the gate to let the students go to his own examination room. Chen Zhou waited until the classroom quieted down again before coming to his seat during the exam and quietly waiting for this afternoon's math exam. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Mathematics is so difficult, comprehensive theory is so average, and English is so simple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Mathematics is so difficult, comprehensive theory is so average, and English is so simple. At 3:00 p.m., the math exam begins. Holding the test paper, Chen Zhou flipped through it several times but never started writing. There's no way, math and Chinese are completely different styles, and the questions are too difficult. Simply put, I can't even find the ones that are easy to get started with. Since that's the case, let's follow the order. Chen Zhou flipped the test paper back to the first page and began calculating on the draft paper. At the third multiple-choice question, his progress was interrupted. This is a function geometry problem, where the line passing through the focal point f of a parabola y equals 4x intersects with points A and B, and O is the coordinate origin. If AF equals 3, find the area of A0B. On the draft paper, Chen Zhou had already drawn the coordinate axis and parabola, and also casually drew the straight line passing through the focus F. Then, Chen Zhou looked at the draft paper and lost his thought. As time passed, Chen Zhou moved the draft paper slightly downwards, revealing the 4 options covered. Glancing at it, I checked a quarter possible option C. Skip this question and move on to question 4. A permutation and combination problem. Read the stem once, as if you have some ideas, read it again, forget it, the next question. Question 5. The application of derivatives in studying the monotonicity of functions is so difficult. Pass first. Question 6, it's still so difficult. Pass. Done jumping. So I'm done too. Chen Zhou jumped to the second type of question, the fill-in-the-blank question. The fill-in-the-blank and multiple-choice questions are completely the same path. There are a total of 5 questions, except for the first one that can be done. Let's pass the rest first. It took me 40 minutes to write 3 questions. Chen Zhou glanced at his watch, feeling very puzzled. I haven't even received a quarter of the key fill-in-the-blank questions. The remaining answer questions are also pending according to this route. An hour later, Chen Zhou completed the first task in its entirety, barely completing the second task, and filling in the third task as much as he could write. As for the remaining 3 questions, he left a solution and some formulas that he didn't know were correct or not. He only hoped that the grading teacher could give him a sympathy score. After finishing these, Chen Zhou flipped the test paper back to the front and stubbornly stumbled until the paper was handed in. He was a little lucky this time, but fortunately it wasn't a bottom-up exam, otherwise he would have finished. Until going to the classroom for evening self-study, Chen Zhou's mind was still buzzing. In the classroom, there are also many mournful cries, all condemning the math exam takers. How did you do on the exam? Chen Zhou turned his gaze to Zhang Yifan, who had arrived in the classroom earlier. Shaking his head, Zhang Yifan sighed and said, "This is the most difficult math test I've ever done, none of it. It feels like it's like. Like what? Just like. Just like how I can't describe it well, do you understand?" "I understand. It's okay, maybe the exam teacher is not in a good mood. Chen Zhou pointed to the classmates who were complaining, everyone is similar. Zhang Yifan remained silent. Chen Zhou chatted with the classmates in the front row again, but of course, they didn't show much interest. A math exam left a group of people feeling somewhat autistic. After the evening self-study, Chen Zhou returned to the rental house and took out a set of incorrect questions from his backpack, placing them on the table. Open. Still not opening it. Chen Zhou is very conflicted. During a night of self-study, he never dared to flip through the wrong question set. Now, let's die. Sure enough, it's unbearable. I have memorized more than 2 pages on the set of incorrect questions. With a feeling of disappointment, Chen Zhou fell asleep. The next morning at 9:00 a.m., there was a comprehensive science exam. A total score of 300 points for comprehensive science, including 110 in physics, 100 in chemistry, and 90 in biology, with a relatively balanced distribution of scores. Chen Zhou also experienced the balance of the exam paper during this 2.5 hour exam. Unlike Chinese, which has half of the original questions, and unlike mathematics, which only requires you to know a few questions, this science comprehensive exam is of moderate difficulty. Difficulty, ease, and moderation refer to the increasing difficulty of a problem from simple to difficult, but it will not make you cry hard. Chen Zhou worked hard to fill this exam paper at his own pace. For things like mechanical vibration, the law of universal gravitation, chemical bonds, structural formulas, and protein extraction and separation, if I know, I will do them first. If I don't know, I will leave them empty for now. Chen Zhou first completed the physics section of the test paper, then the chemistry section, then the biology section, and finally went back to tackle the questions he didn't know. It cannot be said that everyone is confident, but being able to apply the knowledge they have learned will not be like mathematics, with 2 eyes smeared with darkness. Chen Zhou secretly gave a thumbs up to the teachers who had set questions for the science and engineering exam. 3 minutes in advance, checked the test paper for the last time, and Chen Zhou handed it over and left. This time, Chen Zhou learned from the previous day's lesson and remained calm. After all, people cannot be complacent. Like yesterday, you only experienced the joy of 3 hours of Chinese language, and in the blink of an eye, you fell into the sadness of mathematics, but time lasted all night. So, he learned well and no longer felt overjoyed because he felt good about the science comprehensive exam. Quickly, time has reached the point of taking the English exam. First, take the English listening test. During the listening test, Chen Zhou discovered a serious problem. The questions were all very simple and he could understand them, but he didn't quite understand the listening comprehension. I made a mistake, I can't lose any of my English listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. Chen Zhou secretly decided that after the exam, he must add the listening section to his study plan. After listening, there is a single item fill in the blank, and Chen Zhou looks at the first question. Which one of these do you want? Underscore both will do. A. I don't mind, B. I'm sure, C. No problem, D. Go ahead. Well, the meaning of this conversation is that you can choose either one. Then you should choose A. The first question is quite simple, the next question. Well, Grandma used to say that life is like walking on snow, Chen Zhou murmured to herself, then choose C. The next question is quite simple. Next question, I can do it too. Further down. Easy. Easy. It's too simple. Chen Zhou felt for the first time that English single item fill in the blank was like sending a score question. With confidence, Chen Zhou continued to answer the questions and chose to fill in the close all the way. After reading the short article first and understanding its general meaning, let's start looking at the options. The 20 spaces in the short text are quickly filled, except for a few options that are not very familiar with grammar. You can choose from the rest based on the meaning of the words. Keep going. The first reading comprehension article discusses the issue of children's education, and the title is quite simple. CCBDD, get it done. The second article tells the story of bees, which is not difficult. Chen Zhou quickly completed 4 reading comprehension articles and felt that they were excellent. He was able to understand them all, and he was able to do all the questions. This English exam is so easy. There is only one last essay left. Dear Sir or Madam Xuan, the feeling of writing essays without having to rely on words is so satisfying. Chen Zhou experienced the exhilarating pleasure brought by expanding his vocabulary. Paint the answer sheet and check for any omissions or errors. For the first time, Chen Zhou held his head high and left early in the English exam. Chen Zhou walked out of the exam room and leisurely wandered around the campus. I just feel that the sky is so blue, the clouds are so white, and the chimney with the clouds is so cute. The joy in the English exam room completely dispelled the haze of the math exam. Taking advantage of the wandering time, Chen Zhou took the wrong question set and secretly calculated the score, without adding 100 points to the essay. Unprecedented breakthrough, even if he gets a 0 in his essay, he is still a man with a triple-digit English score. Have a happy dinner and go to evening self-study. I'm just waiting for the papers to be distributed. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. This feeling is really good. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.